After the famous Roswell crash of 1947, specimens were sent to various technical and scientific institutions around the country for study and examination. These specimens contained both biological samples as well as mechanical components and materials. A joint task committee had been formed between all branches of the military and a select few of these institutions in the private sector to host a program of genetically modified children in a secret eugenics experiment under the auspices of medical and scientific research. This is the story of one of those children. In 1962, after reviewing files on thousands of candidates, 2 recruits from 2 different branches of the USA military were selected to foster the specimen designated Majyckle by his creators. They had never met each other before. The father was in the Army, the mother was in the Air Force. They were chosen from thousands of candidates. They were hastily married, both couples receiving suitable compensation and support from various interested parties. They also signed non-disclosure agreements and took solemn oaths of secrecy. The official story is that in spite of the calculated compatibility of the newlyweds, they came from different backgrounds. The father's side of the family emphatically disapproved and did as much damage as they could and finally succeeded in tearing the couple apart. There was a divorce and an out-of-court settlement. The mother was never heard from again. It is rumored that the mother may have never actually existed, the name on the official birth certificate being false. The mother was a reptilian egg donor, the fertile sperm from the human male and the DNA samples obtained from the Roswell corpse specimens allegedly comprise the genetic structure of the subject known as Majyckle. Majyckle was given anything he desired. By the time he had reached 12 years old, he had seen and done more than most people will do in their entire lifetime. By the time he turned 18 years old, the Joint Committee had long been dissolved and the experiment closed and considered a failure. No enhanced abilities were noticed which could have made him a significant contribution to society, let alone to the advancement of humanity. The private sector corporation wanted their hybrid back. They have a patent and a certificate of custody by settlement after the contract was terminated because Majyckle was actually a ward of the state. There is also some question as to whether or not it was even human, since there are some genetic mutations. There are no outward signs indicating anything other than earthly humanoid. For all practical intents and purposes, Majyckle is a Caucasian humanoid male. Blood tests are normal. It was decided that if the boy was considered to be human, he would have to undergo a battery of tests to see how he lived up to the corporation's expectations. Since he was allegedly pre-programmed to fight with innate skills, contests were arranged between him and his peers. But to be particularly sure that the skills were genetically inherited and not learned, he was pampered and tempered to behave in a pusillanimous fashion. He was taught that fighting was contemptuous, brutish, animalistic behavior and was beneath a dignified and evolved being. The first few contests were disastrous. The hybrid literally rolled up in a little ball and cried terrified for its life the first few times. The father was instructed to inform the child that he must have deserved it somehow and should be more forgiving. Eventually the specimen snapped. The following is part of an interview.
So, you think you may be an alien hybrid?
I do. I think you are, too. I think the entire human species is the result of extraterrestrial intervention.
But you've asserted that you are an extraterrestrial human hybrid, specifically of unique origin. If the entire human race are extraterrestrial human hybrids, what makes you any different from anyone else?
No, I assert that it seems like it could be possible that I might be a laboratory-grown human with alien DNA spliced into my own DNA, as a result of which I exhibited a certain level of clarity as a young child which got me volunteered, and was able to recall being someone else in a previous life. That makes it different.
Oh, that's even better. Have you had this checked out? It wouldn't take much to have your DNA sampled these days.
No, I don't really care. I mean, I sort of care, you know. But if it's true, then that changes a lot. If it's true, then that is scary, because that means a life of being tested and paraded and no real privacy. If I'm not, then it just proves I'm nuts. I've thought it over on how to present my story. I'm okay with everyone thinking I am nuts. It's therapy for me to put it out there. That way, I can see it from how you might see it. It puts it in perspective a bit. It's an interesting story, and one, I am discovering, that is not uncommon. Maybe it will help someone else. Besides, if I told everyone I was an actual extraterrestrial human hybrid grown in a lab, not only would people think I am crazy, but someone else might take it way too seriously and try to kill me. That would suck. I like living.
You've got a point. Not all humans like different. Well, with that being said, just how did you come to discover this story?
Once when leaving my body, I imagined it all in what turned out to be a very short span of time. It was all re-experienced as if someone had redacted parts of an entire document and whatever it was that they used to conceal the redacted part just stopped working.
That must have been weird. Why do you say imagined?
Yeah, that's why I accept crazy. I am 60 now. The memory is fuzzy and I wonder how much is my own imagination. A lot has happened since then. I cannot rule out the possible influences of what I have heard and seen since. I don't want to be a fraud and don't want to be afraid. Besides, if it's an entertaining story, then what does it change?
You said you could recall being someone in a previous life. What do you mean by that?
I do not necessarily prescribe to the various orthodox ideas of reincarnation, but the memory is there nonetheless. The memories I have are clear and I often have déjà vu experiences. I also have a very clear understanding of things that I have never been taught, which has proved to be annoying at times.
That actually sounds like it could come in handy.
Well, nobody likes a know-it-all, or a show-off. After a while I guess I became annoying. I was young and naive. We were all really good at whatever we did. Healthy competition could sometimes deteriorate into quiet resentment.
Friends were lost?
Bonds were never made. It became a game of one-upmanship. They ganged up on me and I was bullied into submission just so they wouldn't feel stupid about themselves. I even said so and that made it worse.
I see what you mean. You weren't accepted by your peers because you are an alien hybrid?
I was accepted so long as I was submissive. Even being equal was not allowed. They needed me inferior. I'm not sure why. It made me feel special in a negative way. Why was I singled out? I wasn't who they wanted me to be. That is the way it felt and still feels.
I guess we all feel a little alienated at times. What about the reincarnation? Who were you?
Who I allegedly may have been is hazy, but it doesn't look nice. Nevertheless, the memories all post-toddler to preschool. If it is an actual reincarnation, then I wonder if it is genetic memory from the alien DNA I suspect was used in the artificial conception process. I am aware of how crazy that sounds. So, I conclude that I may be the reincarnation of an alien being, or I am able to recall the alien's memory as a result of the gene splicing.
Do you ever have recollections of being abducted onto a flying saucer?
No, nothing like that. I seem to have memories of being in one, but not being taken against my will.
So, you've been in a flying saucer?
No, it's a memory sort of. You know how you can think of something and see it sometimes sort of? At other times you think about something and you don't really see it even though you believe in it because you haven't actually experienced it? One is a memory and one is your imagination. This feels like a memory.
Okay, on to the next question. Let's see. Then if not on a flying saucer, then in another dimension or on another planet?
No. It was deep underground in a mountain. It was here on Earth.
This is where the interaction with the aliens happened. Were they lizard people?
It's hard to say, but yeah, I believe this is where there are people not like normal humans anyway, let's put it that way. Trying to discern from my memory and my imagination, I say there were several different types of people there from many places. I was told I was born in North Carolina, but I feel like I was born in the mountain. I always have.
Was it a spaceport, or a Stargate?
No. Nothing like that I know of. More like a little city underground.
That's cool. Do you remember where it is?
F.T. Ritchie in Maryland, I think. It has apparently been closed now for a while. I did some brief research but nothing extensive. I figure that if there was anything connected it would most likely be out there somewhere. Most I could find was the Ritchie boys and a theory about a supposed underground Pentagon beneath the White House, which, I wonder, was that the place?
That's a lot to take in. Do you have any proof of this?
No. Not really. I'm not really sure if I want any proof.
Why not? I would.
Whenever I talked about it, I was called a liar by my parents who took me there, even right after we left. In retrospect, they did not really call me a liar. I just interpreted it that way. What they would say was, "No you don't," or "You don't remember that," as if I was being silly. I knew I shouldn't talk about it to other people, but my parents pretended as if it didn't even exist at all. It bothered the crap out of me.
So, this was a top secret facility?
It isn't top secret as far as I know. Deep underground military bases exist. Any military brat can tell you that. Some kids get to go inside and some don't have that chance. But every military brat is aware of them. I feel that this was where I actually lived.
You lived in a deep underground military base as a child?
It's hard to say. I just feel like I was more familiar with it than the other home we had at the same time. It is an underground city with stoplights, restaurants, and apartments. This was 1968. Which would put me at 5 years old. I know this because we watched what must have been Apollo 8 and the Beatles' yellow submarine surrounded by bigwigs.
What was it like?
It felt like a vacation.
No. The place where you watch Apollo and the Beatles?
Oh, okay. It was a really big place with televisions everywhere on the same channel. Lots of food and stuff. It was Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's.
So you remember it clearly, then?
I remember parts of it as real as any memory. Other parts of this period are hazy. But I feel I was asked to view through the astronauts' eyes somehow, as they would let me sit in a special chair and I would tell them what I saw.
Like remote viewing?
Now that I know what that is, I suppose so. I thought it was a game. A lot of people were apparently interested because I had a lot of people paying attention to me.
There was no abuse, no probing of any kind?
No abuse or probing that I am aware of, and I never felt any fear.
It was something you did frequently?
Yes, there were many of us actually. Other kids around my age. I think they all played in the chair also, but I do not remember being friends with any of them. I do not remember meeting anyone. I suppose I must have, right?
Maybe you weren't allowed to.
It's more like none of us really wanted to. Sometimes it was like we all knew the same things at the same time, but I just can't quite put my finger on that. I have actually never thought of that before, but it seems familiar.
What do you mean familiar?
It always felt familiar in the memory anyway. Half recalled dreams of being someone else, a better version of me, sometimes a worse version. Like when we looked at each other, we were looking at reflections of ourselves, like each one of us was the same but in a different body.
Wow, do you still get this feeling?
No. It's a memory of a feeling I haven't felt in a long time. It's like it was there for a long time, then one day it just stopped.
It just stopped?
Yep, just stopped. I mean, it wasn't announced or anything. I don't really even know if I noticed that it had stopped.
Explain what you mean.
As a dependent in the military, there was always some routine checkup. It was so common.
Routine checkups such as?
Checkups and counseling sessions, mostly always wanting me to describe my dreams and other questions. I sort of liked it in a way. Not the shots, of course.
Who likes to get shots?
I feel like the shots and counseling somehow erased my memories of inside the mountain, but now it has been wearing off.